You might be losing the respect of others without even realizing it. Not because of one big mistake, but because of small habits, seemingly harmless, yet slowly eroding your image day by day. The scary part is, most of us repeat these behaviors unconsciously, and the result? Our credibility fades, relationships weaken, and opportunities slip away. Today, we'll look straight into 4 toxic habits that silently damage your reputation, and explore how Stoic philosophy can help you eliminate them to live with integrity, strength, and genuine respect. A gentle thank you before we begin. Thank you, the one who is listening right now. The Stoicism Everyday channel exists because of people like you, those who seek depth, who strive to understand themselves, and who truly want to grow. Every comment, every like, and every share gives us the motivation to continue this journey. Thank you for walking with us on the path of awareness and self-mastery. The first habit: gossip, the silent poison in human connections. People treat gossip as harmless social glue, a casual exchange of words that fills silence, entertains, or brings people closer together. It's just conversation, they say. But underneath the surface, gossip is far from innocent. Every time we talk about someone who isn't present, we reveal more about ourselves than about them. We quietly declare, "I can't be trusted with what's private." And once others sense that, respect begins to dissolve, quietly but irreversibly. In the modern world, gossip has evolved into a form of social currency. People trade secrets, opinions, and speculation in exchange for attention or belonging. Yet, this false intimacy comes at a high cost. When we engage in gossip, we may feel temporarily connected, but what we actually build is an environment of mistrust. The listener may nod, laugh, or even contribute, but deep inside they are asking one simple question. If they speak like this about others, what might they say about me? Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, once wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." That statement is as relevant today as it was 2,000 years ago. Instead of dissecting the flaws or choices of others, Stoicism teaches us to turn inward, to examine our own behavior, motives, and integrity. The energy we spend judging others could be used to refine ourselves. Gossip is, in essence, a way of avoiding self-reflection. It distracts us from our own growth by focusing our attention outward, onto the faults of others. Psychologically, gossip satisfies a few powerful human needs: the need for connection, the need to feel superior, and the need for control over uncertainty. When people gossip, they experience a brief sense of importance, a feeling that they know something others don't. But this satisfaction is temporary, and the long-term consequences are corrosive. Trust is one of the most fragile elements in any relationship, and gossip slowly eats away at it. Once people see you as someone who leaks information, they will begin to censor themselves around you. Slowly, the conversations become shallow and true bonds vanish. The Stoics viewed speech as a sacred responsibility. Words, for them, were not tools of entertainment, but instruments of virtue. Epictetus advised his students, "If you hear something, do not repeat it. If it does not concern you, do not say it." This is not about suppressing all speech, but about practicing discipline in communication. The ability to remain silent when tempted to speak is one of the clearest signs of inner strength. In a noisy world where everyone rushes to comment, the person who chooses restraint stands out as calm, wise, and trustworthy. There's also a deeper moral dimension to gossip. Every time we talk about someone's flaws or mistakes, we reduce their humanity to a story, a headline, a punchline. We take their complexity and shrink it down to a single trait. This act dehumanizes not only the subject of gossip, but also ourselves, because we train our minds to see people as entertainment rather than as beings worthy of understanding and compassion. I once witnessed this in a workplace setting. A colleague became the center of office gossip due to a small personal mistake. For weeks, people whispered, exaggerated, and laughed. But as the situation unfolded, it was clear that the gossipers had lost something far greater than their target's dignity. They had lost credibility. The atmosphere grew tense. People became guarded, suspicious, afraid to speak openly. Gossip had poisoned not just reputations, but the entire environment. From a Stoic point of view, gossip violates one of the core virtues: justice. Justice means treating others fairly, speaking truthfully, and avoiding harm. When we gossip, we act unjustly, spreading words that can damage reputations or deepen misunderstandings. Even when the information is accurate, passing it along without necessity serves no virtuous purpose. So, how can we replace gossip with something better? The answer lies in intention and elevation. Before you speak, ask yourself 3 questions. Is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? If the answer to any of these is no, silence is the wiser choice. Instead of discussing people, discuss ideas. Instead of focusing on others' failures, talk about possibilities, solutions, or lessons learned. A single shift in your conversational habits can transform how people perceive you, from a source of noise to a source of wisdom. A proverb often attributed to Eleanor Roosevelt captures this perfectly. Small minds discuss people, average minds discuss events, great minds discuss ideas. To live according to Stoic principles means to choose the last category, to raise the level of every interaction you have. In the end, gossip is not just about what you say, it's about the energy you bring into the world. Each word either builds trust or breaks it. When you stop feeding the habit of gossip, you stop feeding insecurity, both yours and others. You become known as someone who protects dignity, who listens without judgment, and who speaks with purpose. And in a world where everyone talks, that silence, calm, intentional, and grounded, becomes your greatest strength. The second habit: losing credibility. When your words lose their weight, a person can be brilliant, skilled, and full of potential. But without reliability, all those qualities lose meaning. Talent attracts attention, but trust earns respect. You can impress people once with your words, but only your consistency will make them believe in you. Every time you fail to keep a promise, even a small one, your reputation silently weakens. Respect doesn't vanish overnight. It fades slowly every time your word fails to match your action. In the Stoic view, reliability is not just a social virtue, it's a moral duty. Seneca wrote, "Nothing is more valuable than the promise of a person of integrity." To the Stoics, keeping one's word was a reflection of character, not convenience. A promise wasn't a flexible suggestion. It was a commitment, a bond between one's intention and one's action. When you give your word, you create an expectation, not only in others, but within yourself. Breaking that bond damages both. Modern life often rewards spontaneity, adaptability, and multitasking. Plans change, we say lightly. Something came up. But over time, these small excuses add up to a pattern others recognize before we do. People stop relying on us. Invitations stop coming. Opportunities quietly bypass us. The tragedy of unreliability is that no one announces when they stop trusting you. They simply adjust their behavior in silence. Reliability isn't built in a day. It's built through repetition, through arriving on time, meeting deadlines, doing what you said you would do even when it's inconvenient. These moments seem insignificant, but they accumulate into credibility. And once you lose it, rebuilding it is slow and difficult. A single broken commitment can undo years of trust. From a Stoic perspective, the root cause of unreliability is a lack of self-governance. When your emotions, desires, or distractions dictate your choices, you lose control of your own actions. You say yes when you should say no, and later you regret it. You overpromise because you seek approval or fear disappointing others. But true integrity begins with knowing your limits. A reliable person doesn't promise everything. They promise only what they can deliver. Epictetus taught his students to live in harmony with their nature, to align what they think, say, and do. This unity between inner thought and outward action defines the Stoic concept of virtue. When there is a gap between what you say and what you do, your inner and outer worlds fall out of sync. That dissonance creates guilt, anxiety, and eventually self-doubt. You start to feel ungrounded because deep down, you know you're not living by your own word. Consider a simple example. You tell a friend you'll meet for coffee at 3 p.m. At 2:45, you get distracted or tired and decide not to go. You think it's harmless. It's just coffee. But what you've actually done is teach yourself that your word can be broken whenever it's inconvenient. Do this enough times, and your subconscious learns that commitments are optional. The erosion of self-discipline begins in small acts of neglect. Reliability extends beyond personal relationships. In the workplace, it defines professional reputation. You can be the smartest person in the room, but if people cannot count on you to deliver, you become a liability. Teams rely on predictability, and predictability is built on people doing what they said they would. Leaders, especially, rise or fall on this principle. A leader who fails to follow through teaches their team that promises are performative, not binding. The Stoics viewed this integrity as the foundation of social harmony. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." For him, speech carried moral weight. To say something was to assume responsibility for it. Words were not to be used casually. They were declarations of intention. The wise person, therefore, speaks less but fulfills more. So, how do we restore the power of our word? By practicing Stoic accountability, the discipline of aligning speech with reality. Before agreeing to something, pause and ask, do I truly have the time and energy for this? Is this aligned with my values and priorities? If I commit, am I willing to follow through even when it's inconvenient? If the answer is no, decline respectfully. Refusal, spoken with honesty, earns more respect than agreement, followed by disappointment. People may be temporarily displeased, but they will recognize your integrity in the long run. Transparency is another cornerstone of reliability. When circumstances change, communicate early and clearly. A delayed apology after breaking a promise is weak. An honest update before failure happens shows maturity and respect. Stoicism values preparation over reaction, being proactive instead of remorseful. Reliability also requires consistency in small actions. Being punctual, keeping appointments, replying when you say you will, these are not trivial gestures. They are the daily rituals through which character is revealed. Over time, these habits create what the Stoics called eudaimonia, a state of inner peace born from living in accordance with virtue. In an age where words are cheap and promises are broken with a text message, the reliable person becomes exceptional. People will notice, even if they don't say it aloud. They will feel a quiet confidence around you, the kind that comes from knowing that your word means something. To live as the Stoics taught is to live so that your speech and your action are indistinguishable. Say less, mean more. Promise little, deliver fully. And remember, when your word carries weight, you carry yourself with dignity. Habit 3. Interrupting others. When the ego speaks louder than respect. Have you ever caught yourself cutting someone off mid-sentence, not out of rudeness, but out of eagerness? You think you're engaging, showing enthusiasm, adding value. But beneath that impulse lies a subtle form of ego, the belief that what you have to say is more important than what's being said. It's one of the most overlooked habits that silently erodes respect. Interrupting seems small, even harmless. In a fast-paced conversation, it can feel like energy, like momentum. Yet every interruption, no matter how well-intentioned, sends a quiet but powerful message. My voice matters more than yours. The other person may not call you out for it, but they will remember. They'll remember the feeling of not being heard, and over time, that feeling becomes distance. A teacher once told me something that changed the way I communicate. You speak fast, but you listen slow, and that's why you don't truly learn from others. Those words stopped me cold. For the first time, I understood that listening isn't about waiting for your turn to speak. It's about allowing others the full space to express themselves. When you interrupt, you don't just break their sentence. You break the thread of their thought. And in doing so, you declare, even unconsciously, that your need to respond outweighs their need to be understood. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we may listen twice as much as we speak." That principle, though ancient, is more relevant than ever. In an age of constant noise, notifications, debates, and opinions, silence has become rare. We equate speaking with strength and listening with passivity. But the truth is the opposite. It takes far more discipline to listen than to talk. Listening requires humility, patience, and emotional control. The very virtues the Stoics held sacred. When you listen deeply, you practice self-restraint. You hold back the ego's urge to dominate. You give the other person the gift of presence, the sense that, at least for a moment, their words matter. That simple act builds trust faster than any speech could. Because at the heart of respect lies one thing: attention. Interrupting often stems not from arrogance, but from anxiety, the fear of being unheard or unacknowledged. We rush to speak before we're forgotten. We cling to our points as if silence would erase them. But this mindset reveals insecurity, not confidence. The Stoics would call it a lack of inner steadiness. A person who is calm and self-assured doesn't need to fight for the floor. They know their turn will come. In my early career, I was that anxious speaker. During meetings, I would interject constantly. To clarify, to challenge, to add just one more thought. I believed I was showing initiative. But one day, my manager said to me quietly after a meeting, "You always have something to say. But when do you ever hear?" That moment hit hard. I realized that my constant talking wasn't helping me connect. It was isolating me. My colleagues started deferring to others, skipping me in discussions. They didn't dislike me. They simply stopped expecting me to listen. I had created that perception myself. From then on, I began practicing what I now call Stoic listening, intentional silence. I made a conscious effort to pause before speaking, to wait until the other person truly finished, to let a few seconds of quiet exist before replying. At first, it was uncomfortable. My ego resisted. It wanted to fill the space. But soon, something shifted. People began to open up more around me. Conversations became deeper, more thoughtful. Paradoxically, the less I spoke, the more people valued my words when I did. This change also altered my internal state. I became calmer, less reactive. I learned to observe not just what others were saying, but how they were saying it. Their tone, their emotion, their intention. I discovered that most communication happens beyond words, and only those who truly listen can catch it. The Stoics believed that listening is a form of wisdom because it aligns with nature. Nature moves slowly and purposefully. It doesn't rush to respond. When we interrupt, we act against this rhythm. We impose rather than receive. Listening, on the other hand, is an act of alignment. It brings harmony into dialogue. In professional life, the ability to listen without interrupting is often what distinguishes a leader from a follower. Leaders who listen make others feel seen. They extract insights others miss. They speak with precision because they've absorbed the full picture first. As Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "Take the time to understand what is said, and the motive behind it." Respect, then, is a two-way street paved by attention. When you grant others the dignity of being fully heard, they reciprocate. They begin to listen to you with the same presence. Over time, this mutual respect transforms not only relationships but entire environments. Teams become more cooperative, families more peaceful, friendships more honest. To stop interrupting, you must retrain both your mind and body. When the urge to speak arises, take a breath. Ask yourself, is this necessary right now? Most of the time it isn't. The world doesn't need faster talkers. It needs deeper listeners. In the end, silence becomes a form of strength. Not the silence of indifference, but the silence of understanding. When you choose to listen fully, you don't lose your voice. You amplify its value. So, remember, to speak well, learn first to listen well. To be respected, learn first to show respect. And to truly connect with others, let your presence, not your interruptions, do the talking. Habit 4. When negativity becomes your identity, complaining feels natural. It's almost instinctive, a release valve for frustration, a quick way to express discomfort or disappointment. Everyone does it. But when it turns into a habit, it stops being a relief and starts to define who you are. Slowly, without noticing, you become the person who always finds something wrong. And nothing drives people away faster than constant negativity. Not because they don't care, but because being around that energy is exhausting. I know this from experience. For a long time, I complained about everything. Work, weather, traffic, people. It became my default mode of communication. I thought I was being honest, just saying how things are. But in truth, I was cultivating a mindset of dissatisfaction. Then one day, a friend looked at me calmly and said, "Maybe the world isn't that bad. Maybe you're just looking in the wrong direction." Those words hit like a mirror shattering. They forced me to see that my perspective, not the world, was the problem. The Stoics understood this centuries ago. They taught that suffering is not caused by events themselves, but by the way we interpret them. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor, wrote, "When you complain, you give power to the very thing you despise." In other words, every time you focus your energy on what's wrong, you strengthen it. You feed the problem instead of freeing yourself from it. Complaining changes nothing outside of you. It only corrodes what's within. Let's be clear. Stoicism does not advocate blind optimism or emotional suppression. The Stoic way isn't about pretending everything is fine. It's about clarity, distinguishing between what you can control and what you cannot. When you recognize this boundary, you reclaim your power. Complaining ignores this line. It tries to control the uncontrollable, to rewrite reality through words instead of actions. Epictetus, once a slave and later one of the great Stoic teachers, taught his students a simple truth. Some things are up to us, and some things are not. The weather, the economy, other people's behavior, all outside our control. Our opinions, choices, and reactions. Those are ours to command. Complaining confuses the two. It invests emotional energy in what can't be changed, leaving you drained and powerless. When you catch yourself complaining, ask one simple question. Is this within my control? If yes, act. If no, accept. This small mental habit, practiced consistently, transforms not only your mood, but your entire way of living. It shifts you from victim to participant, from reactive to responsible. From a psychological standpoint, chronic complaining rewires the brain. Neuroscientists have shown that repetitive negative thinking strengthens neural pathways associated with pessimism. The more you complain, the easier it becomes to find new reasons to do it. It's not just a bad attitude, it's a trained one. But the good news is, habits of thought can be retrained the same way they were learned, through repetition and awareness. When you replace complaining with gratitude or action, your brain begins to adapt. You start noticing possibilities instead of problems, lessons instead of losses. Your attention, the most precious form of energy, shifts from what's wrong to what can be improved. And people feel that difference. They sense calm instead of chaos, strength instead of bitterness. I remember the exact moment this shift became real for me. One morning, I was stuck in traffic, late for a meeting, surrounded by honking cars. My old self would have cursed the situation endlessly. Instead, I asked myself, can I control this traffic? The answer was obvious, no. So, I took a breath, turned off the radio, and used the time to think through my presentation. When I finally arrived, I was centered, not furious. The traffic hadn't changed. I had. That's the Stoic discipline in practice. changing your response instead of demanding that the world change for you. Complaining also has a social cost. It spreads negativity like smoke in a room. Even if people don't tell you, they begin to distance themselves. They start sharing less, smiling less, avoiding conversations that might spiral into yet another venting session. Slowly, isolation sets in, and the irony is cruel. The more you complain, the lonelier you become, which gives you even more to complain about. To break this cycle, you must practice conscious speech, the art of choosing your words with purpose. Before you voice frustration, pause and ask, is what I'm about to say constructive or just cathartic? Will this help anyone, including me, to move forward? If the answer is no, hold your silence. That silence isn't repression, it's mastery. The Stoics believed that the wise person speaks only when their words can improve silence. Replacing complaint with gratitude is another powerful antidote. Gratitude doesn't deny hardship. It acknowledges the parts of life still worth appreciating despite hardship. Marcus Aurelius began each day by reminding himself, I have woken up. I can think, breathe, and act according to reason. That simple recognition turned each morning into a victory of consciousness over complaint. When you cultivate gratitude, the tone of your life changes. You become someone who brings calm to chaos, who focuses on what can be done instead of what went wrong. People are drawn to that energy. They trust it because it reflects emotional maturity, the ability to stay balanced when others collapse into frustration. In the end, complaining doesn't reveal how bad the world is. It reveals how powerless we feel. But Stoicism reminds us, you are never powerless, because your response is always within your control. So next time you feel the urge to complain, pause, take a breath, ask the question, is this under my control? If it is, act. If it isn't, let it go. And in that simple moment of restraint, you reclaim your freedom. The freedom to focus your mind, preserve your peace, and become the kind of person whose presence lightens the room instead of darkening it. The best revenge is not to become like the one who harmed you. In the same way, the path to being respected is not to demand it, but to live in a way that truly deserves it. If you genuinely want to change, comment below, I choose to be worthy of respect, and share which habit you're ready to transform starting today. If this video made you reflect, remember to like, share, and subscribe, because philosophy doesn't live in books. It lives in the small actions you take every single day. See you in the next video. Stay mindful and bring into the world the energy of creation, not judgment.